Hello and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. This episode, we're coming to you courtesy of the Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They specialize in lucha libre, porosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to make the most well-rounded performers active in the world of wrestling today. Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Video Podcast. I'm so glad to have you guys here on this Easter weekend. A lot of people off for the Easter break. We're never off. We're always watching the news, seeing what's going on in the world of professional wrestling. We want to bring it to you as soon as we can. It's kind of a slow week, but we're trying to get back into the swing of things with a few tidbits that have been going on. One, Alberto El Patron. Alberto El Patron has come out this week and talked about the JBL situation and the conversation about the bullying that goes on in World Wrestling Entertainment. JBL is the first person who's come out actually in support of JBL, saying that he has never had a problem with JBL. He's always been respectful of him and been respectful of his family. Now, when you put that in context, JBL is someone who has had problems with pretty much everybody in World Wrestling Entertainment. JBL has called out multiple personalities. He really has an issue with that company, but for him to come out and support JBL, pretty interesting. So, I know there's always two sides to every story. Some people, I know Jerry Lawler this week was talking about how if you know JBL, it's different. You just have to get to know him. I don't know where this goes from here. Obviously, people like Justin Roberts and Mario Ranallo don't take his joking, playing, or whatever you want to call it. They don't take it lightly. Maybe he just doesn't understand where the limits are. But either way, if you're World Wrestling Entertainment, you need to step into this situation and lay some groundwork and ground rules for what is and is not acceptable and appropriate for one of their announcers. Because you don't want to have the publicity backlash if you have this going on. And we already see that on SmackDown with the huge amount of people booing and chanting, "Fire JBL." You don't want that. You're a publicly traded company, and that could really be an impact on your stock price. So WWE needs to get a handle on this and handle it right away and take care of things and hope that this goes away. Also in the news this week, CM Punk adamantly hates World Wrestling Entertainment. With that being said, you would think that AJ Lee would never go back there to wrestle, but that's not necessarily the case. She did an interview this week, and I'm going to read you a quote right from her interview. It says, "I would never say that because I've personally said never to things before, and I'm done them. But I'm so happy where I am right now, and I feel like I had such a pitch-perfect career and that I would be nervous about tarnishing that. I feel like it's kind of full circle and perfect for exactly what I wanted, but who knows?" I like that part at the end, but who knows? If she hated WWE to the level that obviously her husband does, it would have been a definitive absolutely not. I'm not doing that. But CM Punk has been very vocal in the past about how she handles her career on her own, and he handles his separately, and they don't let them cross paths or intertwine. That he wants her to follow her dreams and do what she wants to do, and that's very supportive of her husband and something you have to respect. Same thing with CM Punk. He obviously has a huge issue with World Wrestling Entertainment. I don't think that's going away anytime soon, if ever, and she's understanding of that, and she's willing to accept that. So unique, but awesome, just completely awesome way to handle their unique situation. This week, I want to get this out there because some people, I don't think, realize how incredible Impact Wrestling could be very, very soon. I did not put this in depth into the audio version of the podcast. So if you're listening to this version, the audio version, I did a whole rundown of Revolution Pro's show from the weekend. It was a stack card top to bottom, but I'm one of those guys, I really don't like looking at the camera and then looking down to read things. I hated doing that just for the quote that I did for AJ Lee, but I want to make sure I get you the exact phrasing. But I don't want to run down a Revolution Pro card here and have to keep looking off screen. I like to look right at the people who I'm talking to. You guys are the important ones. But when it comes to this other topic, TNA Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call them, this past week I'm watching the show and I get to the main event and I know what was coming up because obviously, like you guys know, I've been reading the spoilers for weeks too. I know who's returned and things like that, but I didn't really pay much attention to it until Thursday night. I'm watching the show, and what I realized was when you look at the 8-man tag team match that they had in their main event, you had Alberto El Patron, a former well-established WWE mainstay. You had Chris Adonis, who I don't know if many people appreciate him like I do, but I always thought he was completely misused in WWE. He had a great body. He got a little bit of issues with some of the performance-enhancing drugs for a little while, and then he got significantly smaller, but he still had a good look. And I thought he actually worked pretty well, and I thought they never really gave him a great chance, and no one else has ever since. They had the return of Matt Morgan, who I thoroughly think has been wasted his entire career. I was very upset when he decided to retire. Thankfully, he's come back. And then you look across the ring. Oh, and I don't want to forget the big one, one of my favorites, Magnus, the Global Force Wrestling champion. Now, a lot of people have already speculated GFW is going to merge with Impact Wrestling at some point, and Jeff Jarrett's kind of going to get his baby back in some way. But however they end up handling this situation, however they end up playing this out through booking and everything else, Magnus is a huge name. Nick Aldis, whatever you want to call him. He's a huge name. And he's a talented wrestler. And when he was in Impact Wrestling and he was world champion, he was actually one of the best performers on their card. He didn't always cut the best promos, but he's an insane talent. Then you look across the ring, the other side, the team Josh Matthews, team Borash and team Josh Matthews. On Josh Matthews' team, you have Bram, who obviously is very talented. He's got the right look. He's got a great body. He's got a great skill set. You've got Eli Drake, who was in WWE's developmental territory, got cut, and then went to TNA and has been very solid for them top to bottom. You have Tyrus, who was, again, a WWE mainstay, who was completely improperly used. They built him up when he first showed up as like this unstoppable tough guy, and they flirted with a couple times him going against the Big Show, and then they just turned him into the Funkadelic and destroyed his character. I'm not real thrilled that he didn't get a better run in WWE. And then you got Bobby Lashley, who's just a legitimate tough guy, whether it's in the Bellator cage or in Impact Wrestling or in his previous stint with World Wrestling Entertainment. He's the United States champion, ECW champion. He's a legit star. When you look at these 8 guys in the ring together, they actually are stacked with talent. I don't care what part of the roster you're looking at either. They have a lot of newer guys in their X division now, but even the X division has a lot of talent. When you look at the tag team scene, yes, we don't know who a lot of these teams are because we haven't seen them long enough, but LAX has a familiar feel because Homicide's there, and you still remember him from when he was with Hernandez. You've got the influx of new people, this Garza Jr. and people like that. You've got these huge mammoth beasts that have been wrestling for GFW coming in. There's all these people who you're not overly familiar with yet, but the reality is, quite talented, and they're putting on good product, and that's what you want to see. Even the Knockouts division, you have the loss of someone like Jade, who was kind of like, for me, was Impact Wrestling's version of Asuka, but you lose somebody like Jade, but they've got so much talent, and they bring back people that you're really familiar with from when they were peaking. About, you bring back Angelina Love. I understand she's with her husband now, but she's still a familiar face that you're very confident in. If you were a fan of Impact Wrestling when they were at their peak, you like seeing her. So I've been going through their shows after this week. I had to go back and look at a few shows, and it occurred to me their talent pool is actually much deeper, much more rich than I ever thought it was. So if you are a true diehard like I am, and you want to see wrestling in any version, in any variety, this is a promising sign. I actually think Impact Wrestling is really primed to make stake their claim for that #2 spot in North America. They have done a lot of changes, as everybody knows. They've lost a lot of talent. When you lose people like the Hardys and Maria Kanellis and Mike Bennett and Jade and Drew Galloway, that looks like it's really going to destroy your roster. But when you supplement with some of the people they've brought in, despite the fact that some of them have been gone for a little while, it really legitimizes your roster. So I'm very much impressed with what TNA has done lately, or Impact Wrestling. I got to get away from saying TNA. Impact Wrestling has done lately, and I'm very happy to see and happy to say that their talent pool looks amazing going forward. I really think their time is now. The future for Impact Wrestling is now. And I think with all these partnerships they've made all over the world, whether it's AAA, Crash Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Noah, the ITV thing for World of Sports, like whatever it is, all these deals they're making combined with the talent influx, I think Impact Wrestling is ready to really make a splash in the wrestling world like they haven't for several years, probably going back to the Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe time. So keep your eyes on what's going on in Impact Wrestling. I'm very much, like I said, I'm very much impressed with their product lately. And really, if you've tuned out lately, try to give them a shot. Give them watch a few shows. Go into it with an open mind. Don't go in with a critical mind of, oh my God, this is terrible because of Dixie Carter and everything else. Go in with an open mind, and you might be surprised. They have a killer product that they're starting to put together, and they really are looking to make a huge impact. Take care. Next episode, guys.